have you ever noticed that there's one tiny thing that can make you snap? It can make you cry, or it can just make you feel completely melting down. It's not being over dramatic. It is not being a drama queen, but it's called crashing out. And I love this Gen Z term because it so well captures an idea, an experience that so many of us have been having. And there's been so much great conversation around it. So we're going to dive into that today. We're going to talk about why it happens, what it is, what to do about it, and let's get this started. Dr. Ali is in. That's me, Dr. Ali, and I am in. Folks, let's talk about crashing out. So I want to know in the chat, what is the most ridiculous thing that has made you completely lose it? What is the thing that you're kind of ashamed to admit? Yeah, I lost my cool. I blew up. I totally overreacted to this one tiny little thing. What is the thing that made you crash out and you're kind of embarrassed to admit it? I have so many moments of crashing out, and I wanna hear from you about your moments. And what I did here is I asked our community about what are the moments that have made them crash out recently, and I'm gonna bring up that data over here. Here we go. You all can see that. Let me zoom in a little bit on this so that you can see it a little bit better. Let me zoom in, folks. Let's see. Come on. How do I want to zoom in. I guess I'm gonna have to do it this way. Okay. You all can see that, right? So I asked, what's the last thing that made you snap? Being excluded or ignored, 19%. News or social media, 17%. The two in the lead, schoolwork or work, just being overwhelmed with that, or a fight or drama with someone. So these are the main two things that seem to be making people crash out. But all this other stuff, I mean, this is all kind of like a four-way lead here. It seems like a lot of people are experiencing distress over all of these things. And it seems pretty common here to have a wide variety of situations that are making people crash out. Here we go. Boom. That makes it a lot bigger. That's a lot easier to see. All right. So what about you all? What has made you recently crash out? I got some stuff coming in from the chat. So let's see. Let's dive out. Fortune says, I crashed out when I was arguing with someone. So that's kind of in keeping with the number one here in our community. We had 349 people agree with you, Fortune, that said fight or drama with someone is what made them crash out. And then Reese says, something that made my crash out was family wearing my clothes. Someone else was wearing your stuff? Ree. What are they doing? I've had a lot of crash outs. We're gonna talk about those in a moment. Well, maybe I'll let me share one right now, which is probably the one I was most embarrassed about. So I was in high school, and I was going with my friends to the X Games. I don't know if you all are familiar with the X Games, but the X Games were like the extreme games. They're on back in the day in ESPN2. I don't even know if that's still around, but they were like skateboard. They're like the worldwide Olympics, like the best competitions for all the games that back then were not represented in the Olympics. So skateboarding, um, rollerblading, like stuff like that. A lot of this stuff that kind of emerged in West Coast street culture, a lot of those sports, it was like the best competition for that. And so I went with a bunch of my friends, and we were having a ton of fun over there. And this is the late 1990s. I think it might even been 1999 or the year 2000. And there was a lot of swag. People were giving away a ton of stuff. And someone was giving away a T-shirt, and it just said Napster on it. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with, but Napster was the first file sharing program that made it really easy for people to share music, and you could just kind of download music. And it completely changed the music industry, because it used to be you had to buy albums, and because of Napster, the music industry was kind of in a state of collapse, and that's how iTunes came out. And then you could buy tracks individually, and then streaming music came out after that. But Napster kind of changed everything. And at the time, I was super obsessed with Napster, and I would download a ton of music and then make CDs for people and give those CDs to all my friends. And that was a thing. I was like very much known for that in my friend group. And they tossed out a Napster shirt into the crowd, and my friend caught it, and he took it, and I got really upset. I wanted that T-shirt. And I was like, "Can I have it?" And he's like, "No, you can't have it. I caught it." And I was like, But like, I'm the Napster guy in our friend group. Can I have that shirt?" He's like, "No, I caught this fair and square." And I lost it. I flipped out. I was yelling. I'm like, "You don't understand. I spend so much time looking for music and making albums and playlists that I know you all will love. I'm the Napster guy. I need to have that shirt. That shirt is mine." You got to remember, like, back in the day, this is back in like 99, 2000, where you couldn't just like go buy a Napster shirt if you wanted to. There wasn't like this kind of merch that you couldn't just go to Amazon and buy something. Amazon existed, but they almost only sold books. Anyways, I was so embarrassed, and the rest of my friends were like looking at me like, "What is happening? Why is Ollie having such a crash out?" We didn't use the word crash out. That word did not exist back then. And this is one of my favorite things about Gen Z, how you all find these ways of describing mental health experiences that are super universal and have been going out forever. These experiences have been going on forever, but you find a way to talk about it that makes it easy to talk about. And I love that. Gen Z is so good at doing this. So back then, we didn't call this crashing out. We might have called it like flipping out. There's some words we called it that are like actually not okay words to say now. But crashing out back then used to mean going to bed and going to sleep. It kind of meant like pre-bed rotting. So if you're a millennial or Gen Xer, crashing out, what that meant to us was like you're so tired, you're gonna crash, you're gonna go to bed, and you're gonna sleep forever. You're gonna bed rot, basically. So yeah, these terms, the meanings change over time. But I was totally flipping it. I was totally losing my cool. I completely embarrassed myself, and so the question sort of becomes like, why? What happened there, and what was going on? And so we're gonna talk about that. Liz says, "I remember Napster." I'm glad I am not the only one here in the chat who remembers Napster. I was afraid I might be the only one. Meme Machine says, "My laundry pile makes me crash out often." Oh, Meme Machine, you and my wife too. I kind of put once our laundry's done, I just put it on the couch and it forms these laundry mountains and it stresses out my wife. And sometimes it doesn't make her crash out, but it does make her super upset. Um, so I feel, yeah. And then eventually deal with it. But yes, it kind of takes a while. Um, Let me see. So many examples here. Liz says a breakup with my friend made me crash out. That totally is a big common one, like we saw in our community poll here. Fight or drama with someone is the number one. And Pepicol, I hope I got that right, says, my roommate's leaving her closet opened. The door of her closet hides the door of my closet when so when your roommate opens her closet door, that kind of blocks you and that makes you crash out. I've got a great roommate crash out story that I'll share later. I get your pain. Roommate stuff is hard to deal with. Kevin says Napster was cool. I had thousands of songs. Yes, same here. I had a lot. KB says, is crash out a newer term? I don't use it. Some people use it in a way to make it seem cool. Yeah, so it's definitely a newer term from the last few years, I would say. It emerged, it's been lifted from, I think from a song a long time ago, but it's as like a cultural term, it's like a newer term. But yeah, flipping out would probably be a term that you're more familiar with. So Reese says that when you crashed out over someone wearing your clothes, the person in my family doesn't have enough of their own socks. I feel bad for kind of lashing out at them. Today's their birthday, so I might get them socks and other clothes. Sounds like a good gift to get them. And Keenan says, I was the burn CD guy around my parts too. What a time to be alive in the 2000s. Keenan, we didn't know how good we had it, man. The joy of like making the perfect playlist for someone, burning it on a CD and giving it to them, being like, I made this for you. This whole album is you. Enjoy it. Man, what a cool thing. What a cool thing that we could do back then. I guess you can make playlists now. Not the same. Doesn't feel the same. And Chocolatier says, oh no, the mountains of laundry. I have tons of what I call a pile of doom. It definitely feels like a pile of doom. It definitely feels like that. So many examples of crashing out over here. And so I want to talk about this. Like, what is a crash out? So there is real psychology here. This isn't just like a Gen Z TikTok trend. People have been crashing out for forever. And what we're talking about here, what it is, it's a buildup of emotions. And then something happens and it leads you to blow up. So there's a buildup of stress. There's a buildup of anger. There's a buildup of frustration. There's a buildup of sadness. There's some kind of emotion that keeps narrowing you, but that maybe you're trying to push away. Maybe you're trying to mask so other people don't see. Maybe you're trying to keep your cool so that this emotion doesn't spill out. And you're trying to hold it. You're trying to hold it. And then something happens. It could be something small. Could be something big. But it leads you to unleash, blow up, crash out. It all sort of comes out. Sometimes that crash out, it can be small, it can be brief. It could also be this big giant thing. And I spent at least 1 to 2 hours researching TikTok videos about crashing out. And I thought, hey, I'm going to find some good videos. I'm going to show my audience these TikToks and we're going to react to it. We're going to have this like great conversation about crashing out, right? I was doing all of that. And then I was like, there's no way I'm going to show most of these videos because these videos made me feel so often angry, and it made me feel so uncomfortable. And it was it was like a car crash that I couldn't stop watching, but it made me feel terrible. And what I really pride myself on these streams is to make these cozy, safe, supportive places. So I'm not going to show you most of those videos. I only outlined 2 videos that I want to show you that I think do a good job of doing a deeper dive into what a crash out is. But this is one of the things about crash outs. I think they make for very viral content too. They make for things that everyone shares. And I think that's why people are talking about crashing out more now, because you can record someone's crash out. Recording someone else can also lead to a crash out. And also, people want to talk about their crash outs, to share what they're going through, to make it easier for other people to talk about these experiences, all that sort of stuff. But people have been crashing out forever. People have been crashing out forever. So I got 2 videos here that I do want to show you that aren't going to make you feel overwhelmed, that I do think do a good job of showing this stuff. So let me pull up these videos over here. All right. So this first one, this is great.
Gen Z phrase of the day is...
All right. Is the audio playing? I think the audio is
Gen
playing
Z phrase
for you.
of the
Why
day.
isn't the audio playing for me? Man, I really... Tech problems are so... Oh, you know why the audio isn't playing for me? Well, I turned down the volume on my own thing. Genius, Ollie. Good job, Ollie. All right, here, let's play this video. I know you were hearing it. I wasn't hearing it. Let's go.
Gen Z phrase of the day is...
Crashing out.
What's crashing out?
It's when you get really mad at something and you like throw a tantrum about it. Usually like when you're like gaming or you're like in class.
If a student was playing silly phone games and lost and like slammed their phone down, we'd say, bro's crashing out.
Yeah. And then there's different terms, like it's like a reasonable crash out or like an unreasonable crash out. A reasonable crash out would be like something that makes sense and like everyone can relate to crashing out. Whereas like unreasonable, it's like they shouldn't have crashed out for that. That's just stupid.
So there's levels of crashing out legitimacy.
Yeah.
I learned something today.
All right, I love that. So there's 2 main things in that video. Thank you to Aaron McKelkey for that video. All right, 2 main things here is it's when you're like that person's defining a crash out as when you're like throwing a temper tantrum, which kind of has this like negative spin on it, right? But what I like about that is like it's something that feels like out of the context of what you're usually doing. And sometimes that crash out can be justified, and sometimes it can't be justified. So we're going to talk about that too in just a moment. But what I think makes sense about that is we all go through things that are too much, that we can't handle anymore. And it makes sense for you to have a totally out of norm emotional reaction to that thing. I think so like, for example, if you lose a job, it makes sense for you to crash out after that. If you've been working on something, I saw a video. This TikTok was pretty good, but then I think the person started swearing, and I'm like, I'm not gonna put this in the live stream. But this person was studying for exams and used an erasable pen to take all of her notes for this class. And then she put her phone on top of the notebook. And she learned the hard way that erasable pens erase because of the heat that is created when you're erasing. You know what else creates heat? A smartphone. So in her whole notebook, right where the phone was, it erased everything she had written. So her notes were just kind of gone, right? Yeah, if you're studying for something and that happens and you're relying on those notes, you're probably going to crash out. You're probably going to freak out. You're probably going to lose it. And that makes total sense, right? Ree says, I remember how a comedian teacher talked about how her students today turned not safe for work 90s slang into slang for everyday things. That is true. I think also the other thing that Gen Z has done is they've taken a lot of our problematic slang and found new, lesser problematic ways of talking about it. But sometimes you're going to crash out and it totally makes sense. Sometimes it's going to be a small thing that kind of blows things out of proportion. In this video, they also talk about how it might be something that doesn't make sense in the context. So maybe you're in a library, you're studying, this thing happens where all your notes erase, and then you like flip out, as my generation would say, and you go, ah, you scream, and you kind of like throw your stuff. To everyone else, that crash out isn't justified. It doesn't make sense, right? I would argue, here comes another spiky point of view. I would argue that a crash out always makes sense once you know what is going on in the other person's head and the events of their day and the events of their life. If you know someone's story, a crash out will always make sense. But to other people, it's not going to make sense in that kind of situation. All right, I want to show you one more video over here, and I promise it's not going to make you crash out. Let's talk about this video right over here.
What does it mean to crash out? Hi, I'm Jessica and I teach you TikTok slang. When you're about to crash out, that means something just made you so mad or upset, you're about to make a decision that you might regret later. Some examples of crashing out, in my opinion, would be like your soccer team is losing and you just start a random fight with a guy in the stands that roots for the opposing team without fully considering that like you might get arrested.
So that's a great example of crashing out, because what this example is talking about is like a real crash out might have consequences. Like it might get you in trouble. It might get you arrested. It might ruin relationships. It's like something bad might come out of it. And that, I think, is a big part of it. So I think when we're talking about crash outs, we're talking about so many different things at the same time. But one of the things I don't understand, Keenan says the best crash outs equal cart knocks. What are cart narcs? Are they people who are narking on your like grocery cart? I don't understand. Keenan, tell me more about this. And then Brat Ghost says, I thought crash out was just tired as heck. Yeah, this is our generation's crash out. Like, I'm gonna go crash. I'm gonna go sleep. But Gen Z crash out is like our flipping out or our losing it, that kind of thing. But this is a tale as old as time, a problem that's been going on forever. So that is a crash out. And here's what I want you all to know about it. And here's where this actually connects with real psychology, real treatment, real neuroscience. This is actually the term we would use to talk about a crash out or flipping out, losing your cool, all that sort of stuff. It's emotional dysregulation. Here's what happens. So I'm going to draw a graph right over here. And then over here on this axis, let me make sure you all can see that. Yeah, you all can see that. Okay. So on this axis, we got time. And on this axis, we got emotions. Okay. Most of the time, what happens with your emotions is there's some event, right? And let me change colors. I got different markers here. Let me use a different color. What color do I want to use here? Got to be really sure I don't use the permanent marker. I got a bunch of permanent markers right next to my my erasable markers. This is a recipe for a crash out. If I'm tired, I will grab the wrong one, and that'll cause a big problem. And then I will throw something at my computer, and then there goes my computer, and then we got even bigger problems. All right, I'm looking for yellow. I'm not finding yellow, so I'm going to go with light blue right over here. No, why am I doing light blue? Let's do red. Boom. Okay. There's some kind of event that happens, some kind of trigger. This is a text message. This is an email. This is you're studying your notes and they've suddenly disappeared because you put your phone on your notebook and it melted away all the writing you had, right? So there's some kind of event that happens. Now, what this event does to your emotions is it spikes them up. No, why is my green not working? What is this? What is this, folks? This is a recipe for a crash out. Why is my green? Oh, I love this one. Why is it gone? All right, there goes my brilliant plan. We're going back to light blue. All right, so some event happens, right? It spikes up your emotions. Now, what usually happens is the anger, the stress, whatever you're doing, it's going to come down with time. It's going to come down with a little bit of time, with some distance. You know, you might throw yourself into a different activity and that emotion comes down. All right, that's not so easy to see, is it? Now I'm looking at this right over here. The black is much bigger. Why are these colors so difficult for me? So usually the motion comes up and it kind of goes down by itself, right? But for each and every one of us, we have a threshold. For each and every one of us, we have a threshold where if our emotions go above that, we're going to crash out. We're going to lose control. We're going to have a hard time keeping it all in. We're going to have to scream. We're going to yell. We're going to swear. We're going to hit something. We're going to say something we might regret, right? Now, the threshold for everyone is different. And your own threshold might change with time. It might change with situation. It might change depending on whether you got enough sleep or not. But like you right now, you have this threshold. And if your emotions go above that threshold, well, two things can happen. One, now you're at a point where you might do or say something that you might regret. And if our emotions are this high, it's going to take them much longer to come down. It's going to take them way longer to come down. And they might not come down all the way. You might stay up above in that like vulnerable place. And if you're living here in this space, then lots of little things might trigger you again and you might go back up again. So that problem happens to all of us every now and then. But if this, and that's normal. We all go through that sort of stuff. Every now and then we're all put in a place, maybe because something really terrible has happened, maybe because we didn't get enough sleep. For some reason, we get to a place where we crash out. And there are some people that kind of live in this space. They live in a place where their emotions are quick to rise and slow to fall. And if that feels like you, then that's more of a problem of emotion dysregulation. And I want to explain how that works a little bit more in detail, what emotion dysregulation means. Let me know. Liz says, "Don't crash out, Ali. I'm doing my best." And Nishal, hey, what's up, Nishal? Good to see you again. I once crashed out on somebody when they accused me of something I clearly didn't do. And to this day, being accused of small stuff triggers stuff in me. Yeah, so like, that's a great example of how something happened, totally makes sense why you might crash out. Someone's accusing you. And I had this cousin when I was a kid, and I mean a real little kid, like 5, 6 years old. This cousin, he would tell everyone that Ali, me, eats dirt. That like when we're outside and playing, that I eat dirt. And it would annoy me and anger me so much. Like it still pisses me off when I think about it. Because he was the one who was eating dirt. He would eat dirt and then tell everyone else that I'm the one eating dirt, and then all the grown-ups would be like, "Ali, don't eat dirt. What are you doing? You're not supposed to eat dirt." And it made me so crash out. By the way, you want to know what a crash out is? Just hang out with toddlers and little kids. They crash out all the time. All the time. My son this morning couldn't find his hat, and he started totally crashing out and yelling and screaming and throwing things and all that stuff. Turns out he was sitting on it. He was sitting on it. This is just it's just what little kids do. Nigel says, "Oh my gosh, that makes me angry hearing that." Seriously, right? Like, you're eating the dirt, man. It's not me. So like, we have these memories, right? And if this is our brain, and we kind of your brain, it's kind of like divided into these two halves, right? If we can just like take this part away and just look at this brain. This is the front of the brain. This is the back of the brain, and you just kind of open it up a little bit. In the middle here is the limbic system. This is really important for two things: your memory and your emotions. Your memory and your emotions are right here in the middle of your brain, the limbic system. So anytime we remember something that had a big emotional impact, it's almost like we're right back there where it all started. And this is very, very helpful for us in a ton of situations, because we want really emotional things to also leave a big memory. If there's this one type of plant that if you eat that plant, it makes you terribly sick and you feel horrible, you want those things to be strong memories and strong emotions paired up together. We want that. Our brain is an association machine. It connects things together so that the next time you see that plant, you might already start to feel sick, and that is your mind telling you, stay away, Ali, do not eat that thing, because the last time you ate it, you got sick, right? It goes as far as even the smell of a food that might have given you poison, food poisoning. Even the smell of that food might make you feel sick. What a brilliant, brilliant piece of engineering we have in our mind to do that. It's so protective. And Nigel, when you, if you sometimes still get angry when someone accuses you of small stuff, and it kind of triggers all of that, that's your mind trying to keep you safe and reminding you of this situation that was really difficult for you. That's just how our minds work. It's a super helpful thing most of the time. So here's how I want us to understand these, what I mean by emotion dysregulation. You know, the problem with emotions, again, is most emotions go up, we kind of stay there, and then they kind of come down. The problem with a crash out is when an emotion goes past that point that you can handle, and then it stays there longer, and it takes a while to come down, and it might not come down all the way. And then you might get back up to that crash out zone. That is emotion dysregulation. And that is a problem. And everyone's level is totally different for that. So this is an analogy, one of my favorites. What are you supposed to do if you have to burp on a live stream? I'm still figuring that one out. I've only been live streaming for like a month now, and like this happens. I don't know why it happens. I never have to burp when I drink coffee, but for some reason on a live stream, maybe we have some biologists in the house here who can answer that question. Maybe it's because of how I'm constantly talking and all the air coming out and then quickly breathing, and like things get out of whack here. I don't know. I'm a psychologist. I know this stuff. I don't know so much about this stuff. Jovian says, I once saw you on Netflix. You looked very skilled there and truly enjoyed your performance. You're probably talking about Mind Explained. I was on a couple of episodes of that. So one on Mind Explained and one on Coronavirus Explained. One of my all-time favorite collabs, Jovian, was Mind Explained. If you've seen that one, if you haven't seen it, I think it's, like, I'm biased, but it's the best 20-minute overview of anxiety, of what it is and how to deal with it. But that episode opens with me leading someone through hyperventilation and showing how this teaches us how panic works. That moment that leads and starts that whole episode, it was like the very last thing we recorded during that interview. And it was, we were actually about to stop and get up and leave. And then I said, hey, well, do you guys want to see what this looks like? I can kind of show you. And then everyone sat back down and we're like, yeah, let's keep recording. Let's do it. And that little last minute, never planned, never thought, didn't come up in the pre-interview. It was nothing we thought of. It was just this last minute thing. And it becomes like the entire foundation of that episode. And it ends up becoming something they have, the producers, they have everyone else they interview do that exercise. It's so cool. And it was a good lesson for me to just say the things that are on your mind, because you never know if the thing that you just randomly say ends up being the thing that really helps someone else. It's one of the things I really love about live streaming. You never know what it is that's going to work. And Jovian, the other thing about that episode, so many people were like, because that's where I say your mind is an association machine. It connects things together. That was in the commercial for that in the marketing for that video. And so many people were like, I can't believe they fed that line to that psychologist. No, that is my line. I've said that to my patients for years and years and years and years and years. It came out of a group therapy session, and I just said that randomly to someone, and someone told me that's really helpful. And then I kept repeating it. And then people in the comment section were like, oh my God, what a cheesy line. Yeah, might be cheesy, but it's my cheese. No one fed that to me. It was mine, mine, mine. I made that cheese. Nishal says, whoa, that's dope. What's it called? It's called Mind, M-I-N-D, Explained. It's on Netflix. Check it out. The anxiety episode is the one I'm in. All right, back to emotion dysregulation. So here's an analogy I want to share. And this comes from a treatment called dialectical behavior therapy, DBT. And I think it's the perfect way of understanding crash outs. It's the perfect way of understanding emotion dysregulation. So your skin has many, many layers, and its job is to protect you. Its job is to protect your insides from the outsides. Now, I hope you haven't had this experience, but if you are someone who's ever been burned and lost a layer of skin, there's many degrees of burn, right? If you're someone who's had a real deep burn, like a 3rd-degree burn victim, if you're someone like that, the big layers of protection are gone. And what happens if you're in the hospital and you're a 3rd-degree burn victim, it kind of looks like you have some skin there, but the big layers of protection are gone. So if someone were to open a window in your hospital room and you're a 3rd-degree burn victim, and the wind from that window flows into that room, you might have family visiting. They might not even be aware that there's a draft. But for you, the person who's a 3rd-degree burn victim, who's lost those layers of protection, that wind is so overwhelming, and it might be so painful because your body's protections are not there. They're not working. You need help. You need extra layers of protection. And that is the thing about crashing out. When you're in this place, when you're in that vulnerable place where something has happened, your emotions have gone past that threshold that you can handle, and you're in this vulnerable place where you might crash out, where you might have this big emotional reaction, and it might lead you to do something you might regret or get you in trouble. You're just like a 3rd-degree burn victim, where the layers of protection aren't working anymore. And no one else knows it. No one else is feeling it, but it is absolutely your truth. Just like that person studying in the library who has a test the next day, opens up their notebook, puts their phone down, and then the phone erases everything because they wrote in this erasable pen, and the heat from the phone erases everything they've written. And now they lose it. They yell, they scream, all that sort of stuff. The emotions are up so high and they so overwhelm her, probably because she's been so stressed about these exams for so long, and the emotions are now at a point where she can't even process what am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this situation? It's too much. It's too much, and that's where the crash out happens. So that comes from dialectical behavior therapy, and this is real psychological science. This is a real treatment. This is a real thing. This is not just a TikTok trend. There are real reasons why this happens. And for some people, this happens more often than others. So let's kind of talk about that. And I also think there's like big cultural stuff that's happening that might make crash outs a little bit more likely and a little bit more common. So let's kind of talk about all of that stuff here. Does that make sense, folks? Does that analogy make sense? The third-degree burn victim? It's these everyday stressors that hit you harder. And so the question is like, why? Why do they hit you harder? Well, part of it is because of biology. Thank you, DS. I'm glad you like this mic. This is I love this mic. It looks like a giant candy bar, and it looks super old school. I would take it out and kind of show you what it looks like from the front if I wasn't afraid of it like falling down. So I'm not going to do that because then you can't hear me. But I like this mic too. Thank you, Elgato, for making this mic. They didn't give it to me. I bought it, but thank you for giving us all this mic. So, what am I talking about? What am I talking about? All right. So, biology and crashing out. Why are some people more vulnerable to the experience of crashing out? Part of it is biology. Some people are wired to have nervous systems that are just more sensitive. And I don't mean sensitive in like some kind of like negative way, like, oh, you're so sensitive. I just mean that your senses, sight, sound, smell, touch, taste, they're just stronger than other people's. For me, my sense of sound is super strong. This is a gift as much as it is a curse. This makes me aware of so much stuff that's happening in the environment that other people are not aware of. It's something my son has also inherited. We'll be at home, and my son and I both hear airplanes going by. We hear a bus down the street and around the corner lowering and opening the doors and people getting on and off. We're just kind of clued in to these sounds way more. And my wife and daughter, totally unaware of this stuff. And for me, one of the great joys of watching a movie is listening to the sound design, listening to all the sounds that they've added in, listening to where they are and what they're doing. It's just so much fun for me. And at the same time, certain sounds can be highly triggering. And for me, I'm someone who's developed misophonia, where certain sounds quickly trigger anger and hate. It's just a fast thing. Misophonia is also one of those cool things that we know more about because of the internet, because communities of people came together and started to share these experiences, and people in mental health started to learn that, oh, this misophonia thing it's a lot more common than we thought. It's not this rare thing. But for me, if there are certain sounds in the environment that are going off that my mind feels like should not be happening in this situation, it triggers misophonia, it triggers that anger and hate. And a good example of this is my wife loves to floss. It chills her out. It's like a great way of relaxing for her. And so she likes to floss late at night while watching TV. And I can hear the scraping sound of her teeth. And if I hear that sound and we're like watching TV, I cannot concentrate. And boom, really quick, just like what we're talking about before, crash out. my emotions immediately go way up here. They go well beyond the area where I can tolerate, and this is where I want to scream. I want to throw. I want to go full on rage mode. It feels like it comes out of nowhere. And then I stay here. For a very long time. That's misophonia. That's also crashing out. And I can't control this. To some degree I can control it, and then I can't. And then I yell and scream. And so what I've done to deal with this is I've talked to my wife about it, and sometimes if I'm having a hard day, she just does not floss there. She'll go do her own thing. If she sits very far away from me, sometimes I don't hear it. I also got these everyday earplugs that I put in, and these cut down. These guys cut down on a bunch of noise, not everything, but a bunch of noise, and these help me tremendously. But last night, a neighbor of mine was throwing a party on a Thursday night, and they were playing super loud music going very late into the night. And that's where all I could think of were these thoughts of like going over and yelling and screaming and being like, can you turn your music off? My kids are asleep. What is going on? Right? So I never asked to have a nervous system where my sound is very sensitive. It just is. It's very sensitive. My wife has a very strong sense of touch. There's certain shirts and materials that if she wears, she can't stop feeling them, and it makes her really annoyed, right? So I have a friend who super, super sensitive sense of taste, and certain if someone puts like cilantro, arugula. I know some people are super sensitive to those tastes, but that'll ruin a meal for him. And so he'll get super mad if something like that is in food and he didn't realize it, because now that's all he can taste, right? So we all have unique, individual, bespoke, specialized biology that is just ours. And sometimes that makes us very sensitive to certain experiences. And no one else knows this. You didn't know I have the super sense of sound. Just right now, I bought a brand new Kensington Thunderbolt USB 3 hub thing. So I can have my camera, my mic, all this stuff. I have 3 monitors here. I've got this monitor, I'm looking at you, my main one, my laptop. So I can have all this stuff connected. But this unit came with the power of this unit produces this very subtle humming noise that really annoys me. So I've covered it up. I've put it away. I also got in contact with Kensington, and to their credit, they sent me a replacement that just arrived, but I didn't have time to set it up before. But you have no idea I'm going through that. We, people, have no idea the struggles that each other experiences. We have no idea what is the sensory experience other people are having. Some people are so sensitive to smell, and maybe I put on a little too much extra beard oil that day, and then I walk into the subway and someone just keeps smelling the vanilla smell of my beard oil, and it's really frustrating them and annoying them, and they had a hard day, they didn't get enough sleep, and they crash out and they yell at me. I had no idea, right? This stuff just happens sometimes. Sometimes we all just have unique biology that is different. Nigel says, as a Desi guy, cilantro is the bane of my existence, and it's in everything. I'm laughing because my mom put cilantro in everything. And when she would make pakoras, and she would make like this, like, what's the green chutney called? I'm blanking on the name, but she would make it, and I would be like, can you put extra of that green stuff in? And then she would. It was cilantro that she put in. Nigel, I'm sorry. But this is a perfect example. This is a perfect example. Nigel and I, we're both Desi guys. We're both got much love for the subcontinent, right? Maybe, Nigel, you and I both share a love of bagoras, of potato fritters, for those of you who are not Desi. And I had no idea that Nigel cannot tolerate cilantro. So if Nigel comes over and has Mean Machine, it is not chimichurri. It's not. Oh my gosh. Very different stuff. Both green, I think, but very different stuff. But if I invited Nigel over and I would make my mom's recipe and I had the cilantro there, Nigel's probably going to be triggered, and I had no idea. And I might have had all the best intentions. But this is the thing about our nervous systems. We're all wired in different ways, right? So some people, they just have nervous systems that are a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more wired to experience things differently. That is part of biology. And then another thing, and we might be born this way, it might develop over time. You can become more sensitive to different things. And one of the things that can rewire your biology is traumatic, intense emotional experiences. Sometimes it might not be a trauma, but it might be an intense emotional experience. But we go through experiences that make us even more sensitive to things in the environment. A lot of people in the chat were sharing about past life experiences that made you really sensitive. Like maybe someone was saying that you did something and you didn't, and now anytime that happens again, your nervous system gets fired up. You know, your emotions, they go up way fast than everyone else. Everyone else's emotions maybe go like this, like this, like this when they're blamed for something they didn't do. But for you, when this happens, you get way up here past the point of crash out, and now you're living over here, right? So we don't know what someone else's life story is, what their experience is, what kind of stuff might trigger their crash out. It just kind of happens. And the more you have experienced these kind of traumatic experiences, these intense emotional experiences, the more your nervous system might become more sensitive, more wired, more focused on these things. So that's just biology, folks. That's not you. It just kind of happens. And the next part of that, so we got, let's see, we talked about like biology. We talked about experiences and traumatic experiences, intense emotional experiences. The last part of this is skills. I feel like I almost wrote that with a Z. Skills. Some of us just don't know how to handle this stuff. So I talked about my misophonia. Certain sounds put me into rage mode. The sound of my wife flossing. The sound of my neighbors playing music very late at night. Another thing that'll put me there? Oh, folks, this is a real bad one for me. When I sit down to record or to stream and someone nearby fires up their lawnmower or a leaf blower, it makes me so mad for two reasons. One, it takes a while to get things set up. Number two, it takes a while to get your emotions in the right place, ready to stream. It takes a while for me to put on my face and to look so sweet for you all. So once I'm ready to turn on and record and go, the vibe is right. And I took a while to get the vibe right. And then if the lawnmower goes off, I'm pointing to my window, which is right over here. If the lawnmower goes off next door, if the leaf blower goes off, you might not hear it because the mic is good. The mic will filter out that sound, but I hear it. And for me, the way my ears work, the way these guys work is it cannot filter out that sound. I keep hearing it, and I'm trying to be here for you, but that thing's going off. It makes me so upset, right? It makes me want to like scream. And the fact that I'm supposed to be on and performing here for you makes it even more frustrating, right? You have no idea that that's going on. We have no idea what kind of stuff is happening, right? So with my misophonia, it was my biology. I didn't know that this was happening. The experience part of this is I didn't know at first that the sound of my wife flossing would annoy me, and it didn't at first until it kept happening. And then my biology kind of got wired to notice it, and then it made me really upset. So I had to develop a whole new skill set of dealing with this. I had to learn how to talk about these things with my wife so I don't just go into rage mode, so that she understands what I'm going through. And once she understood what I was going through, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea this is happening. I'm so sorry. How can I help?" Right? I had no idea that there were these like um, daytime wearing earbuds. That's not what they're called. What are they called? They're not earbuds. They are earplugs. Earplugs! They plug up your ears. I had no idea that there were like daytime earplugs you could get that let in a ton of sound, but block out a lot of sound too. So I had to learn a whole new skill set of dealing with this stuff. And then if you keep crashing out, it could be you got biology that's wired for it, that makes you feel like that third-degree burn victim. Other people have no idea you're going through this. It could be you've gone through experiences that make you much more sensitive, that make your nervous system even more sensitive to certain experiences. And then you just don't have the skills to deal with it. You're not equipped or ready or experienced enough to deal with it, right? All that stuff is coming together. So if you crash out, what is it for you? Is it biology? Is it experience? Is it skills? What is driving your crash outs? Chocolate Terror says, dinner with Dr. Ali, that would be totally awesome. It would. However, spoilers, I'm not a good cook. I'm a terrible cook. I am a much better dinner guest than I am a dinner host. I love meeting and talking and listening and learning and all that sort of stuff, new people at a dinner party. I do not like making those foods. I do not like making those meals. Liz says flossing noise blockers, LOL. That is basically what these guys are for me. Pelicol says, "Oh my God, I didn't know misophonia was the word." I've got a video on misophonia. So if you look up misophonia, hatred for sounds or something like that, I think it's one of the first videos that pops up, and that does a deep dive into this whole topic of misophonia. It's there's actually now neuroscience to back it up that everyday misophonia is most often experienced with the sound mouth related sounds, sound of eating and chewing and breathing, that kind of stuff. It's kind of the opposite of ASMR. ASMR is like certain sounds produce this kind of like relaxing, tingling sensation. It's kind of like the theory here with ASMR it's kind of like what we experience as babies when we're like, it's okay, I've got you. And it's kind of soothing and relaxing. Some people are wired to continue experience that into adulthood, and that is ASMR content right there in a nutshell. Misophonia is like the opposite, where certain sounds produce hatred and anger and rage. And now we have neuroscience that backs that up, that you put people into an fMRI machine, have them listen to certain sounds, and you will see activation in their amygdala. Again, opening up that brain, that center part of memory and emotion. There's an overactivation there that people who don't have misophonia just do not experience. All right, so the other thing here, we got biology, we got experiences, we've got skills, but I think there's also a lot of other stuff that is making people crash out now more than they used to in the past. And what is going on here is part of it is where's my thing right here, is part of it is our phones, right? There's so much digital overwhelm through news and social media and notifications. There's so much stuff there that pulls you completely away from whatever it is that you're trying to do. You can be just trying to go through your life and you keep getting hit with all this terrible news. Or you've got this total collapse of news and overwhelm and our social lives. Like, so you fire up whatever social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, whatever you like, whatever you use. I don't know if you like anything. I hate them all now. I hate all of them. Like, researching for this, the more crash out stuff I watched on TikTok, it just made me feel terrible and angry and sad all kind of at once. And the reason for that is what these algorithms are feeding us. You might get one little fun picture from a friend of yours. Then you get some kind of super horrendous news event. Then you get some kind of totally performative influencer content, and you're like, is this real? Is this not real? Then you get like someone who is advertising their OnlyFans. Then you get it's like these wild emotional roller coaster of experiences, and we stick with it because we've been programmed to, and we stick with it because every now and then we get something that is actually what we want to see. That is called variable reinforcement. It is the most addictive form of reinforcement. It's what's behind gambling. It's what makes gambling so addictive. When every now and then you get a hit of something you want and you don't know when that's going to be, it is the most habit-forming problem that you can have. It's why we keep checking our email. It's why you keep why do I check? Most of my email I get is total junk, but every now and then I get something good, right? So I keep checking. I keep refreshing it. So our phones are so overwhelming, and they keep our emotions so high so often. So this graph again, time over here, emotions over here. What I think a lot of our social media does is it brings our emotion up to this kind of like this level. We're kind of living here, whereas maybe a few decades ago, we were kind of like down here most of the time. We were kind of living at this level. So because of tech, I'm going to draw a really ugly smartphone over here. Here's all my apps on the phone. Because of tech, there's a lot of apps on this screen. And because of the notifications, because of social media, we're just living at a higher baseline. So if this is like Ali in 2000 without any type of phone technology, and this is Ali in 2025 living in this super terrible timeline now. If a stressor happened to Ali back then, maybe this would push me up over here, and I wouldn't get anywhere near the point of crashing out. But Ali in 2025, that's getting hit by genocide reports, that's getting hit by news anxiety about what, is there still a democracy in my country? Ali getting hit by a text message from my boss saying, I need that report in now. Ali getting hit by just notification. I get one of those simple things that maybe in 2000 it would put me like right over here and I'd be totally fine. But in 2025, I get hit by that. It takes me into the crash out place because my baseline, the place I'm living, is just higher up and more overwhelming than it would have been before. And then Naishal asks a natural question, is it possible to live in the lower baseline? It's definitely harder nowadays, right? Yes, 100%. It's 100,000 million %, Naishal. It is harder. And it's not just because there's more cilantro and parsley everywhere. No, it's not because of that. It is because of all of this stuff. So because we've got this now looks like the 10 Commandments. This no longer looks like a smartphone. It looks like a tablet. But like a stone tablet, not even an iPad. But because so much stuff has moved towards technology, we don't have as much opportunities to hang out and see people in real life. And seeing people in real life and interacting with people we trust and feel safe around, that is one of those things that will bring down your baseline. Like when you feel support from someone else, It brings you back down to this place. Like getting support from other people that you trust in the way that you want, whether it's hanging out and playing a video game together, whether it is going out to the park and playing basketball, whether it's talking about your problems, just getting support from other people in the way you want to have support is the best thing for your mental health. Full stop. That is it. That is a lot harder to do in 2025, to get support from other people in real life. It is much harder to do that. Calling people is good too. FaceTiming is good too. Anything that's like a longer form where you feel less in your head and you can just sort of like say or do or play whatever way you want to. But that is much harder to do because of these stupid digital devices. The other thing that's happened is you can get exposed to all those stressors like news. You can get exposed to it 100% of the time. Whereas when I was a kid, it was a lot harder to. It was harder to get 24-hour news. And now with notifications, you can be just trying to go about your day, hanging out with someone, and boom, right there, it interrupts you, it pulls you away, and you get this breaking news, which isn't even breaking news anymore. It doesn't even matter. It's not even important for your life. And then there it is in your face. And now you are at that crash out place again. So getting social support, getting help, connecting with other people is much harder now in 2025. Wherever you are in the world, it's harder than it used to be. We also are living more isolated, more solitary lives. So it's a lot harder to get that tangible help from other people. If you need to move a couch, it's a lot harder to get help from someone else about that. The other thing is there's so much more shame now. You look at social media and you see people living this perfect vacation. You go on LinkedIn, blah, gosh, I hate LinkedIn. Because you go on LinkedIn, it's like, oh, I'm so honored to get this promotion, so honored to present at this place. It's highlight, amazing resume, cool job opportunity, highlight. So much of this occupational performance porn. That is what LinkedIn feels like to me. And when I go there, it makes me feel so terrible about my career and my progress and where I am in my life. And so much of social media can feel that way. It can feel like you are seeing all this amazing stuff that other people are doing, and you compare yourself to that. You feel like you're not as good as they are, and then you feel like you have to perform and you have to somehow get to their level, and it's impossible to do that. So you feel ashamed that, like, people as teenagers and in their 20s didn't used to feel like they're behind in life in the way people feel now. Like, just the other day I was talking to someone who was 17 and they felt like they're such a failure and they're so behind in life. And I'm like, dude, you're 17. You're exactly where you should be. You're experimenting, you're trying, you're making mistakes, you're figuring out who you are. That is what you do as a 17-year-old. But they felt like such a failure because what we think is normal is based on social media, and what is performing on social media, what is performing well, is all this performative, professionally created slop that does not reflect how real humans live. Social media stopped being social a long time ago. So that is one of the things that is going up. That's one of the things that's made it so hard for us to connect with real people and understand what is going on. And then the other things that's happening in the world is it's a lot harder to get local news, and it's a lot easier to get big national news. And the big national news, as it always has been, is scary stuff about politics, about political turmoil, about the environment, about big, fast changing technologies and doom and gloom. That kind of stuff was there in the past. That kind of stuff is accelerating now. One, because there are real stressors, real problems happening in the world, but we almost exclusively only get big picture national global news. So that's kind of all we see. Local news, local stories, the kind of things that you actually have control over, the kind of things that you actually can do something about, that is much harder to get now. It's much harder to access that stuff. And that is the stuff that makes you feel like you can actually have a meaningful impact on the world, which you absolutely can in your local community, but it's very hard to get that. And the other thing that is, I think, a big part of why in 2025 it's so much easier to crash out is one of my favorite words, one of my favorite absolute words is inshitification. Do y'all know what this is? Have you heard this word before? Inshitification? Inshitification is a word that was created by a technology critic, author, blogger. I'm not sure what to call him, but Cory Doctorow is a guy who has been a longtime critic of big tech. And he came up with this word to describe an experience I think we've all had, and it's inshitification. That means you've used something that was helpful, good, a joyful experience. And over time, the experience has gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. There are so many examples I can pull from. I'll pull from Instagram. Instagram used to be a place a long time ago where I saw like cool filtered pictures from other people that gave me fun vibes. And over time, it's become a place where I see performative professional content, and I'm not even seeing stuff from my friends anymore. And I'm getting fed stories and reels and all this like chaotic stuff that is not what I signed up for, but is one of the only places where I can somehow have some kind of social experience. Facebook before that was also a great example of inshitification. I think a big example is just flying. Going on a flight now, total inshitification when you're flying. So I'm flying next week, and I'm going to give this talk, and I'm paying so much more money for that flight than I did a few years ago, but I'm getting so much less out of it. I don't even get to choose the seat I have unless I pay extra for the privilege of choosing my seat. Otherwise, my seat is assigned to me last minute, which is usually a middle row seat. You don't know this, but I'm a very tall guy. I'm a big guy. Those seats are quite painful for me, especially when someone puts their seat back. It hits my knees. And so for me to get some kind of seat, like an aisle seat, where I can stick a leg out a little bit, get a little relief from that, I have to pay extra now. I have to pay like $50 extra to try to choose to pick my seat. And it used to be a long time ago, like 10 years ago, if I wanted to sit in an emergency row seat, which has perfect leg room where I'm very comfortable, I could just request that. And they'll give it to me. And I would just call the airline and say, can I get the emergency row seat? I'm kind of tall and these other seats hurt. And they'd be like, yeah, sure, no problem. We'll give it to you. Now you have to pay even more extra for that. So it's like $50 extra just to pick a seat. It's like $200 extra to get an emergency row seat. And then you can't even check a bag anymore. And I'm someone who likes to travel light. And so I don't want to check my bag. Excuse me, folks. Got a little... The airline industry, not happy with what I'm about to say. So I'm someone who likes to travel light. And what I like to do is just have one carry-on. I do everything right. I show up early. I paid extra to get the emergency row seat. And now, because they like overbook, I don't know why, but now there's no more room left for carry-on, so now I'm forced to check in my bag. So the whole process of flying is one of inshitification. And what has happened there And what Cory Doctorow talks about is inshitification, when things you were good become really bad and you're stuck using them, you don't have other options. Why this happens is because people in charge of the company, of the organization, of the product, they switch over from caring very deeply about what the customer's experience is, and they change over to focusing purely on profit. And if you look at the airline industry and how stressful flying is, and how expensive it's become, and how competitive it is, and how it feels like, I don't know about you, but when I go to fly, I'm like gearing up for what feels like a battle, right? So I'm already on edge. Like for me, flying already puts me here, not to mention the security and how much more complicated that has become and how much more stressful that has become. But when I'm flying in 2025, my baseline is already so much higher. And one little thing, like me packing all my stuff and then being told last minute, nope, sorry, you can't bring it on board, that can put me into that crash out place when that wouldn't have happened in 2000. And it's because the airline industry, for a wide variety of reasons, has learned that they can make a lot more money if they make all these things add-ons that you have to buy. And part of that is not their fault. Part of that is their fault. And this thing is happening all over the place. Like Instagram, Nishel says old Instagram photos had a Polaroid kind of vibe, and I loved it. Me too. I love that old school vibe. That's what they were going for. The creators of Instagram, they wanted to make it really simple and easy for you to share photos that looked good. And they did that with their filters, and it was cool. Now that Instagram is totally dead. Like they tried to create Instagram to be this like artist community, and then Justin Bieber came online, and it went mainstream, and it became this other thing. But it was still this place where largely people came together to share photos with each other, and it solved a problem that people had, which was there's no easy way to kind of share photos with each other. Facebook existed, but it still wasn't that easy to share photos on Facebook and Instagram. That is what it became. And Mark Zuckerberg bought it because he was afraid of competition. And my stupid government went along with that, didn't consider it a monopoly. And then here we are. Meta now owns so much of this stuff. They did the same thing with WhatsApp. Facebook got their hands on all this data from VPNs and routers and discovered that WhatsApp was becoming increasingly popular in all these countries that didn't have that, where Facebook wasn't popular, and they saw it as a threat and danger, and they bought it early and they owned it, and now they own so much of the world's market. And that is the situation we're in. But if you look at all of those products, they've lost their way of helping people solve a problem, and they've become so focused on extracting profit. And as that has become the focus, inshitification occurs. And when inshitification occurs, your experience gets so much worse. You get so much more stressed. You get so overwhelmed, and you're kind of stuck with it because there's not a lot of good alternatives. Right? Sure, I could buy a first-class ticket and avoid all those problems that I just talked about with flying and not crash out, but that also costs a lot of money. I am not going to do that. So that is the situation we're in with inshitification. And now I've probably made you feel like, well, Ollie, all this stuff sucks. So what do we do? Well, there's a lot of different things we can do. And the reason I wanted to tell you about all this stuff is because I want to give you the context to help you understand probably the distress you're feeling. Like if you look at stress data, the American Psychological Association does this Stress in America survey every year. And what they've found for many years now is the younger you are, the more stress you're experiencing. And Gen Z as a generation is experiencing more stress than millennials, than anyone else. And a lot of the stress they're experiencing is money-related stress, stress about achievement and what they'll be able to gain in the future, stress about things feeling like they're falling apart, political stress, climate stress, environmental stress, and they feel very overstimulated and overwhelmed. These aren't just like people complaining on social media. There's real data behind this. So there's real reasons why in 2025 so many people are struggling more and feeling like they're constantly on the verge of crashing out. So what can we possibly do? We have now talked about what it is when you crash out, why it happens, how it's about biology, it's about the experiences you go through, it's about skills maybe you haven't learned, and also how it's about these larger systemic things that are happening in the world that have set us up for these really crappy situations. So what do we do about it? We've talked about that. We've talked about this. Let's talk about this now. So I've got a little bit of a mnemonic. I was about to say a mnemonic. It's not a word, folks. That's not how we talk. Reset is the word. So I want to go through this and share this kind of reset plan, and hopefully we can make a little bit of an emergency plan you all can use, and that'll be helpful for you when you feel like you're on the verge of crashing out. So these skills come from dialectical behavior therapy. They are that is my favorite treatment for dealing with emotional dysregulation, which this totally is, which is what we have been talking about here. So let's kind of go through all of this and explain how all of this works. I want to show you this, and hopefully you can you can apply some of this to your own life. So the R in reset stands for recognize and name it. When you feel like you are getting overwhelmed, when you feel like your emotions are rising to that point where you're at risk of crashing out, what I want you to do to start this like reset process is to recognize it and name it. You have no idea how helpful it was for me to learn about misophonia when I was starting to experience it. I didn't experience misophonia my whole life. It really turned on in my 30s. And once I learned that this was a thing, now I had a word. And once I shared what that word was with my wife, when I got activated, I could tell her, my misophonia is turning on. When we put words to emotions, it turns down the volume on those emotions. Again, here's our brain. Let's open it up. In the middle, right over here, limbic system. That is emotions, memories. When this stuff is firing really intensely, you know what you need to do? You need to activate the frontal lobe, this part of your brain over here. Because this part of your brain, it's that higher order executive thinking, planning for the future, integrating all of your thought. When you start to put words to the experience, when you start to describe, I'm getting overwhelmed, I'm getting super stressed, I'm getting super anxious, I feel like I'm about to cry, I am getting misophonia, I am getting this, that, I am feeling that, I'm getting close to a crash out. Even just saying that cools down the amygdala. It cools down the limbic system. It turns down the volume. Turn down the what? It turns down the intensity of the emotional experience you're having it. So just recognize and just name it. That is step one. That might help turn down the volume, and it might also help alert other people that you're getting to that place of overwhelm and you need some extra help. So if you feel like you're on the verge of crashing out, that very first thing you want to do is just name it. It's going to turn down the volume, it's going to turn down the intensity, and it's going to give people a little heads up that that something's going on and that you might need a little bit of help. with a little help from my friends. So recognize it and name it. Now, I'm a big believer in doing the fastest things that are going to help you with the crash out. And the fastest things usually don't involve thinking. They don't involve oh, let's just think realistically. Also, spiky point of view incoming. I don't really believe you can change your thoughts very much. I think it's more about getting unstuck with your thoughts, and finding something that turns your attention away from the inside and to the real universe around you, away from the internal universe and to the external universe. Those are the things that are going to help you the most. So one of the things you can do for the reset plan, if you feel like you're crashing out, let's get it to the E. And the first E over here, because I've got another one, is exhale. Exhale long. There's so many different ways to do breathing in a way that helps you with your emotions. But the easiest way to remember this is doing long exhales. You want to slow down the process of exhaling. Because here's what happens. We were talking about the Netflix episode I was on for Mind Explained a little bit before. And in that episode, I show you how hyperventilation can trigger your anxiety. The cool thing is the opposite is true as well. If you slow down the process of breathing, it can trigger your body's natural relaxation response. So we have a sympathetic nervous system which activates all of our emotions, restricts our thinking, tenses our body, fires your heart rate, makes your muscles nice and tense, gets that blood flow moving away from all this stuff and towards your muscles, gives you a sense of action. That is your sympathetic nervous system. Your parasympathetic nervous system undoes all of that. It relaxes your muscles. It slows your breathing. It soothes your heart rate, slows it down. It gets a blood flowing again to all the different parts of your body, right? That feels very nice when that happens. You can trigger that by slowing down your breathing. So you don't have to learn a fancy way of breathing, although you can if you're super into it. But one of the things, if you feel that crash out coming, you can start to slow down your breathing. Here's a very simple way you can do it. So you can breathe in for 4. Let's actually do this together if you're interested and if you're feeling able. If you're someone who's really vulnerable to hyperventilating, you might not want to do this and you might not like doing this. But if you're someone who is into it, then give it a shot. And here's how we can do it. We're going to breathe in for 4. We're going to hold for 4. And then we're going to breathe out for 7. Here's how it works. I'm going to breathe in, hold, slow exhale. Let's do that again. Breathe in for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 7. Breathe in for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 7. Let's do it one more time. Breathe in for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 7. Chat, how are you feeling now? Because what I am feeling right now is slow. I feel much slower. My voice sounds different. I feel pretty chill, which can be a problem if you're doing a live stream and you need to keep the energy up. But you probably feel very different, right? Nashel says, in the moment, it is so hard to remember these breathing exercises. In hindsight, I'm like, right, I could have done that breathing technique. I guess it's just practice. It's practice, and it's also I got many steps here. Nashel, it's about. I don't think it's about remember. I'm about to crash out. Let me think back to Dr. Ali's stream. I remember he had the reset mnemonic, and I remember step 2 of that was having a long exhale. It's not about that. Here's what I like to do. I like to package it. I want to package up the good psychology for you and then give it to you here so you can have a good experience with it. Now I'm thinking of Frozen, and I'm thinking of woohoo. That guy, what's his name? The guy, the shopkeeper guy. Woohoo! Welcome. Woohoo! You need a rope. Woohoo! There's a song in the musical version. My daughter went to go see the musical. It's called it's not Schadenfreude. It's called it's not called Gutenheim. It's called, what is that song? It's about being cozy. Gosh, it'll come back to me in a moment. But yeah, it's not about remembering all that stuff. I package this and give this to you so that hopefully you can find that one thing that you can try this week. That one thing that sticks with you. That one thing where you're like, okay, this I think I can do, right? The crash out reset plan, I really just want you to take one thing from it. And so maybe you don't even remember breathe in for 7, hold for 7, breathe out, or breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 7. Maybe you don't even remember that. Maybe all you get from this is I remember Ali said just slow it all down. Okay, I'm gonna slow my exhales. Just that's it. I'm just gonna focus on that. Just take that. If that's all you take, Nigel, awesome. That's gonna help you out. Just take one thing. Flora says, I don't drive in freeways because of my anxiety. When my husband is driving the freeway, I do this exercise because I get very anxious. It helps a lot. Even my shoulders get very high. So one of the things, sometimes I tell people who struggle with anxiety, like, first thing you to do when we're going to practice anything, just drop your shoulders. Just drop your shoulders. And I like to tell people just sink into your chair and let gravity take over. For so many of us, we hold the tension in our body and just let it sink in, let gravity take over. For so many of us, that can be so helpful in just getting a little bit out of our head, bringing down that activation that we're feeling in our body. And we're going to wrap up today with an exercise about that, Flora. I'm going to show you another one in just a little bit. But we got other stuff to get to before then. So long exhales is that step 2 of the reset plan to kind of help you with this. The next step is one is actually my favorite one, and that is shock your senses. Shock your senses. The fastest way to change your thoughts, your feelings, your actions is through your senses. Sight, sound, touch, smell, taste. These are our 5 senses. Our brains, our mind, the nervous system, it super prioritizes changes in the environment. We're not really wired to notice stuff that stays the same. We are wired to notice things that change. And we do that through our senses. We can use this to our advantage when we're at risk for crashing out, of flipping out, of losing our cool. We can use this to our advantage. And the fastest way to do this is intentionally trigger a sensory change. And there's so many good ones here. So intense heat, intense cold can trigger it. Splashing really cold water on your face, opening your freezer door and sticking your head in it for just a moment, grabbing ice cubes, taking a hot shower, taking a cold shower, drinking hot beverage. You don't want to burn yourself here, but drinking a warm tea, drinking a very cold beverage. Any of these types of temperature changes work super quickly. But the other way to trigger a temperature change and to notice sensory changes is to get some physical activity going in your body, to do something that completely changes the temperature in your body. So that can be like going for a run. That can be doing some jumping jacks. That can be dancing and listening to the music. But just getting these things going is going to make a very, very different experience. And this one, what color am I using? I'm using black here. Shock your senses is about doing something that's a real strong, intense experience, like really cold water, going for a really fast run, turning up the music really, really loud, something like that. And that's a little bit different from the second E, which is engage your senses. So what I mean by this is more about grounding yourself. So shock your senses is something really intense. So intense cold, intense heat, intense physical activity, something really big. There's another skill here that I've gone into more detail in another video, but it's called the dive reflex. So when your body thinks you're diving into water, it triggers your body's relaxation response. I've got a whole video on it. Just look for dive reflex, Alima 2, it'll come up. But basically, if you fill up your sink with some water, you put your head in there, you hold your breath for about 15, 30 seconds, the dive reflex kicks in, your heart rate goes down really quickly, and it can really put you into a much calmer state. The problem with it is you don't want to do it if you have a heart condition because it can reduce your heart rate really quickly. So talk to your doctor about it if you're concerned. But there's intense ways of shocking your senses. It's going to help you get out of that crash out. But there's other ways you can use your senses too. So you can use your senses to ground yourself in the environment. So if there is, if you're in a space where someone is yelling at you and saying all of these things, you can ground yourself. You can use your senses to get better connected to your environment. So I got a table right in front of me, so I can hold the table and notice, okay, there's a table here. The table feels kind of cold if it's made out of wood, but it also feels smooth on top and kind of rough on bottom. Just hold it, notice it. Use that to help you feel grounded, to kind of get you through that situation. But you can also, if you're not like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, look at 5 things, touch 4 different things, listen to 3 different sounds, smell 2 different things, and notice a taste in your mouth. If you're not a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 kind of person, you can also engage your senses through your imagination. So you can engage your senses by making a visual map in your mind about one of your favorite places to go to. You can go to your happy place. You can think about. I can think about, okay, I'm gonna imagine myself at San Diego Comic-Con, and I'm walking through those front doors, and there's a big lobby, and I'm gonna go up that escalator. And now I'm gonna go all the way to the back and through that like atrium area, and then I'm gonna get to the ballroom 20 because that's where all the cool stuff is that I saw this year, and that was really fun. You can just start to visualize yourself actually in that place. It doesn't have to be a big fancy place. Maybe it's like the ice cream store you love going to around the block. You can also make a list in your mind about, I'm going to make a list about like my favorite songs from this past year. And you'll already start to kind of like hear those songs a little bit. Maybe you start to hear the beat, and that's great. You can get grounded in that experience. Or you can make a list of like, I'm going to make a list of I'm going to rank my favorite Christopher Nolan movies. And you start doing that in your mind. Right now, you're getting grounded in the images of those movies, and you're comparing them, and you're thinking about them. This is a little kind of like recognize it and name it, where you're using this frontal lobe to kind of turn down the volume on the limbic system, the intensity of emotions. It kind of is doing the same thing. So shock your senses with intense temperature, intense activity. Engage your senses by things that are really easy for you to live in and be in that moment, whether it's touching different things and doing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or it's about engaging lists in your head about things that you really love, or going to a happy place and visualizing yourself in that happy place. And then the last thing over here is probably the most important one. Nightshell, if none of these other ones are working for you, this is the one. T is take opposite action. Take opposite action. This is probably the most important one to help yourself if you're at risk for crashing out. Taking opposite action. This means literally doing the opposite thing that your emotions want you to do. It is the opposite thing. So when I have misophonia and my wife is flossing her teeth and it's putting me into rage mode, the thing I want to do is yell and scream and say, don't you realize how horrific that sound is and how I can't get it out of my head? That is what my emotions are driving me to do. What's the opposite of that? The opposite of that isn't to just like not say anything, but it's to get the heck out of there. Get the heck out of this situation. I don't hear another incoming spiky point of view. I don't know where this idea came that to deal with your anger, you have to stay in the situation and like talk through it or work through it. No. A lot of times, if your anger is putting you at a place where you're going to crash out, you're going to do something, say something that you might regret, get out of there. Get out of that situation. That's what we call distress tolerance. Sometimes the best thing to do is back away and get out. Because the thing with crashing out, again, we got this graph. I keep showing it. Your emotions get really high. And once it get over that place of crashing out, this is where you're at risk for doing something you might regret. So if you feel like, oh no, it's going up, get out of there. Get out of there before you crash out, before you say or do something that you really regret. If you're on the verge of tears because you've gone through a very difficult experience and you were just reminded of that difficult experience, get out of there. Get out of there. Help yourself to bring yourself back down so that you don't have to deal with all the consequences of crashing out. It's not just about anger. Sometimes it's about overwhelm. Sometimes it's about sadness. Sometimes it's you don't want to have a day where you're crying in front of all your coworkers. It's okay to do the opposite, which oftentimes means getting out and removing yourself from this very difficult situation. Totally okay, folks. That is totally okay. There's no problem with that. That comes from dialectical behavior therapy. It comes from a skill called distress tolerance. It comes from a very specific skill called distract with accepts. It's about distraction pushing away so that the emotions that are this high where you're at risk for crashing out, they come down to here, where you can tolerate it, where you can hold it, where you can move forward and not do the thing that you might regret. So for me, with anger, a lot of it means getting myself out there, watching something on my phone. My go-to video is the 1984 Crystal Light Aerobic Championship. I think it's 84, maybe it's 86, but it's this like ridiculous video on YouTube where all these people in like 1980s spandex are coming out and they're like da 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 da, and it just cracks me up every time. I go from rage, not so much to chuckling, but I go from rage to like, I can handle this. And I stay at I can handle this long enough, and then I can go back into the situation without raging out. That is opposite action. If the thing makes you want to confront, get out of there. If the thing makes you want to avoid, and that might lead to the crash out, where this crash out might be like you're in a meeting and your emotions are at that high place and you want to just run out of the room, and that would be your crash out. Then practice opposite action. How can you stay? Instead of if your emotions make you want to think and ruminate over and over again, how can you focus back on the present moment? That's your opposite action, is turning your attention from here to here. So maybe engage your senses, really focus in on the environment, touch different things, or just clue yourself into a certain sound, and that's going to help you just stay in the room. Or maybe you can do something like count the number of times Ken is on my shirt. Maybe just focus on that. And that will help you just to stay in this moment so that you are able to take opposite action and you can stay long enough for the emotions to come from here to here. Maybe it's about doodling in your notebook so you stay in that meeting and you're just focusing on the doodling and you're not crashing out by running out of the room. Opposite action. Find a way to do the thing that's opposite of whatever might lead to the crash out. So these are the reset skills. Recognize it and name it, exhale, shock your senses, engage your senses, take opposite action. And if you are just able to take like one thing from this reset plan, that's going to help you to move forward, and that's going to help you to deal with these moments where you might be crashing out. Nishal says, that video is so funny. I know what you're talking about. Nishal, have you seen the parody from Keen and Peele? They have a parody of it, and it's really good. It's definitely worth watching if you know that one. Meme Machine is here. I feel the same way. Flora, I can't recognize my emotions in times like that. What did Flora say? Let me come back. Flora, right over here. I feel like when I'm in a situation that a person is arguing with me, I'm like those animals that pretend they have died. I shut down and I can't even speak. You're talking about the freeze response. Especially with fear, it's not just fight, like I'm going to fight that lion. It's not just flight, like I'm going to run away, but it's also freeze. Freeze is a super effective way of dealing with scary situations. Most animals don't like eating dead animals. Why? Well, because dead animals might carry diseases. And so animals that play dead are less likely to be eaten in the animal world, usually. Now, in the human world, if you freeze, there's a very high likelihood that you might not escalate a situation. So the story I will share about this is if you're in a New York City subway and something weird and wacky is happening, oftentimes the best thing to do is not to do anything. It's to just stay frozen and just like let that situation pass, not escalate it. Because if you say or engage with someone who is really under the influence of substances or they're having a mental health crisis, something is going on. If you engage with them, it might escalate things. And the best thing to do might be just to stay frozen and just wait until the next subway stop comes and then get out of that subway train and then move into something else, right? So a lot of times freezing is good because it helps you not to escalate. Sometimes you get into some problems. You get into like the whole Gen Z stare thing, which I think for all the reasons we've talked about today, I think the Gen Z stare thing is a total real thing, and there's total real reasons why people experience this and people get so angry about it, especially older generations. They're like, you are in a job, and your job is to answer my questions and to serve me, and like your job is not to just stare at me in the face. But that freeze response, if it's activated, sometimes it can be like overwhelming for someone, right? It just makes sense why people have it. So Flora, you are not the only one here. Meme Machine says, yes, 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 cold shower or walk outside when it's cold. Here's why I like walks. Walks are good because you're about to crash out. You're like, you know what? I need to get out of here. You're taking opposite action. You're removing yourself from the situation that might be causing you distress. You are engaging your senses. There is way more sensory stimuli outside of your walls than there is inside. The moment you go outside, you hear sounds, you smell things, you feel the wind, there's temperature hitting your face, there's a lot of things to look at. So you're engaging your senses. You might actually also shock your senses. The very first moment where you walk outside, the wind hits you in the face. You might smell smoke from far away. Maybe there's a smell of a restaurant. Your senses will be shocked in some way. It's going to help regulate your breathing because now you're walking, you got movement going on. You're going to start to breathe a little bit more regularly. And the only way you went for this walk is you actually recognize, I need to get out of here. Some stuff is going on. Walks, best, cheapest way of dealing with intense emotional dysregulation, also known as a crash out. I love, love, love going on a walk. It doesn't matter if you listen to stuff, don't listen to stuff, just get out of there and go for a walk. You're probably going to feel better. And Nigel says, yeah, just exhale sounds simpler and better. The counting stuff and remembering the count stresses me out even more. Awesome. Take the stuff that clicks with you, take the stuff that doesn't stress you out and run with that. Try it out, see how it goes. I love that. Everything in mental health is really about experimenting, trying, seeing what happens, seeing what works for you, and then keeping what works and, not necessarily continuing what doesn't work. Anna says, I think I have silent crash outs. I get stressed, abandon the task and all motivation, but all of it happens in my head and no one realizes. It kind of sounds like your crash out is also kind of like a lock-in. Like you get out of a situation, you might lock yourself into an environment and then like no one else knows that this is happening. This is probably more like the crash outs my wife experiences where so much of her job is masking her feelings, masking her thoughts, and working with people to get the work that needs to be done. So she cannot express all the things that she's feeling. So she's often masking herself. And when she's really wants to crash out and is really overwhelmed, most people don't see it because she's so good at hiding it. And she'll just kind of slowly remove herself from a place. And then like maybe she's like typing furiously into this like notes app all her intense feelings that she has. And that's like her version of crashing out. And what you're talking about here, that like abandoning all motivation, I think that's part of that silent crash out is like, you might just like totally disappear, right? And no one even knows that you got overwhelmed because you just totally silently abandoned and escaped. And I think that is definitely something that can happen for a lot of people here. Nigel says, why do some people default to freeze? Why not fight or flight? I'm also someone who freezes during conflict, similar to what Flora said in the previous comment earlier. So many reasons why. So for a lot of men, the default when they're anxious is actually to fight. The default is to yell and scream. A caged lion, a lion in a cage, when they get stressed out and feel like they have no other option and they cannot escape out of that cage, what does that cage lion does? It roars. It roars. It also can pee on you. That's another option that lion has. But a caged lion will show their fear by roaring to try to get people away. And I think a lot of men do this, and this is how the fight thing plays out in real life now, is mostly by us yelling and screaming. And for a lot of men, when you yell and scream, you actually get what you want. People move away. People give you what you want, unfortunately, because a lot of people are scared of that. That's culturally how it works. So why do some people default to one another versus whether it's fight or flight or freeze? We tend to do what works for us. For some people, if anger works for you, if it helps you to get your desired result, you're going to do more of it. If avoiding, escaping, getting out of a situation helps you to deal with the emotions that you're struggling with, you're going to do more of that. And if freezing is what helps you, you're going to do more of that. When I was very young, I had selective mutism, which meant in certain situations I would just freeze. It was like someone pressed the mute button on me and I wouldn't talk. And that was just kind of how I was wired. If you go back as a baby, I was probably, not if you go back as a baby, if we go back to when I was a baby, I was probably one of those kids that was just more inhibited in a lot of new situations. If I was in a new situation, I would just freeze. And I probably saw more threat, saw more danger, and I just wouldn't move forward. And then that became selective mutism. And then when I got older, that became social anxiety. That's how these things work. It's just the way I was wired. And as a kid who was selectively mute, when I froze, someone else would speak up for me, so I didn't have to speak, and I got away with it. It worked for me until it didn't, and it stopped working kind of in middle school when my social anxiety led me to become more depressed and led to all these other problems, right? So for me, as a psychologist, I am most concerned with the function of the behavior. What is this doing for you? What is freezing doing for you in the moment? Because it's doing something. If it didn't do something, it wouldn't continue happening. And usually, most of every single mental health problem is actually a short-term solution. Most mental health problems are solutions that work in the moment. They just end up producing nasty consequences later on that limit you, that actually cause you more suffering, more distress, that get you into problems that make it hard for you to live your life. Most mental health problems are solutions in the short term, problems in the long term. And we keep doing them because they keep working in the short term. And we haven't figured out, what do I do so these stop becoming problems in the long term? Boom, there you go. I just completely solved every mental health problem out there. Boz Pony? You got a Gen 1 pony in your profile. I was an old school brony. I loved My Little Pony as a kid. And then my daughter got into, is it Gen 3 or Gen 4? What was the, with Twilight and Twilight, Shadow, and, oh my gosh, why am I, Shutterfly, Applejack, what generation was that? Boz Pony, what generation was that? Anyways, my daughter got into that, and then there's the new generation on Netflix, which is like totally okay with Sunny Star Scout. It's okay, but you got an old school one there, so props to you on that old generation. But anyways, those cartoons were terrible. If you rewatch those cartoons, they're not nowhere as good as the more recent stuff. Okay, anyways, I should actually read your comment. But that's also a thing in Europe. Women should be pleasing and make everyone happy and mitigate conflicts. That is a thing in many genders, is most of emotional work in relationships is delegated and expected of women. That is very common, and it's kind of a big it's a big part of it's a big part of the gap in between gender when it comes to getting support. So men are much more likely to get support from women than give support to women when it comes to emotional support. And men are much less likely to give emotional support to each other. Um, Men tend to get most of their, and I'm talking about straight, heteronormative, um, cisgender men, all that sort of stuff here. But they tend to get much more support from women than they are other men. Chocolatier says also, I think culture is a factor too. As a person whose heritage is from South Asia, women are expected to make themselves small and invisible. So when they overwhelm, I shut down. I shut down in despair. Yeah, totally. So this is a big cultural problem here. Is men are allowed to crash out more than women are allowed to. When a man is crashing out, it might just be seen as, oh, they got mad. But when a woman is doing the exact same thing, saying the exact same thing, she might be seen as being so emotional, or she's got like she's so moody and all of these things. Like the way in which crashing out is described and labeled for women is so much more dismissive of the whole experience, and it's something is wrong with her, and it plays into a lot of cultural stereotypes we have of women. And for men, if a man is mad, people tend not to. They often shrug it off, unless it's like really becoming violent, and then that becomes a big problem. KB says, I have misophonia and I live in downtown. SMH. I feel ya. I used to live in New York City, and for many years I lived in the Upper West Side in a pre-war building where it had old windows that had absolutely no insulation. So not only did it get super cold and super hot all the time because of that window, all the sound just poured in. And we were right across the street from a Starbucks. And so anytime there was an argument that was happening outside that Starbucks, I would hear it, even though we were on the fourth floor. We were a fourth floor walk up. And I would hear all of that sound. It was so difficult. And I had to learn a lot of skills to sleep better. White noise, earplugs, so much stuff to try to deal with that, because it was just, I would not have been able to sleep otherwise. Laffy Bun! Oh, Laffy Bun, good to see you. Hi. Good to see you. Laffy Bun says, I think the YouTuber Oddly Specific Crystal had an excellent video on crashing out. She's not even a social worker, but she has an interest in general psychology, and it was really well done. Awesome. I'm going to have to check out that video. I'll have to check out that one. Ryan! Apologies if this has already been addressed, but that is a 10 out of 10 shirt you are wearing. Ryan, it was addressed way early in the stream, and now you're addressing it. Folks, you all know who we are in the presence of? This is Ryan Davidson, composer, singer, songwriter of our theme song. This guy made this. Here we go. Dr. Ali. I hope that played, because I don't have my earphones in right now because I wasn't ready for that, Ryan. But I could see the waveforms going up and down there. But Ryan, thank you for the sweet tunes you brought to us over here. Thank you for that. And then Anna says, can you explain emotional dysregulation and how to deal with it? I find the whole concept confusing. Anna, you're going to have to rewind and get all that content because we went deep into emotion dysregulation. I'm going to give you the very quick version of it. Emotion dysregulation is when, because of biology, because of experiences, because of the environment, because of skills that you might not have, your emotions are very quick to rise, and then they stay in this place. And when you're in this place, that's when you might do or say something that you might regret, and the emotions are slow to come back to the regular place where they're at. So emotion dysregulation, emotions are fast rise, they stay up here. And when you might be experiencing emotion dysregulation, you're kind of like a third-degree burn victim, where the defenses, the protections that you have on your skin, they're burned away. So even a simple wind is overwhelming and painful to you. And so other people might not be aware of it, but you are severely struggling because you're so sensitive to these things in the environment because of your emotion dysregulation, and no one else knows it or is aware of it. So what you got to do is you got to learn a lot of these skills when your emotions go really high, so you don't do something you might regret. But that's only part of the equation. Good to see you, Ryan. I'm glad that you're actually still here. What is this? What is this? I post this comment, and instead of the actual emoji, it says person turquoise waving. That is so not cool. I don't like that. I don't like that. Lavender Meadow, talking about emotion regulation skills. Lavender Meadow, you know I love lavender. We've talked about that before. Oh my gosh. I'm going to spare you all of my speech about how lavender is the best smell, the best color, the best taste, the best tea, the best flavor on some honey. Lavender, give me more and then add some more on top of that. That's what I want to say about lavender. So it's not just about these reset skills in the very small moment, folks. There's one more thing I want to talk about with crashing out. And then I want to walk through an example of what to do here. So it's not just about these are like crisis skills in the moment. And in that treatment that I just talked about, dialectical behavior therapy, these are all skills to help you in, I thought I saw a fly there, but then I didn't. The fly, Jeff Goldblum is right over here. But when you do these things, the reset skills, these are to bring down that emotional intensity, right? So your emotions get really high, you get past that place of crashing out. This is when you might do something that you might regret. This is when you want to use those reset skills. This is where in dialectical behavior therapy, we're talking about distress tolerance. Distress tolerance. It's about bringing you out of that warning zone, right? There's a whole different set of skills called emotion regulation skills. And we use those right here. Boom, in this place. This is where we use emotion regulation. Distress tolerance skills bring down that intensity when you're in a vulnerable place. Emotion regulation skills, they set you up for success in the future. They make it so that instead of going up and up and up like that, your emotions come kind of back down to a more chill vibe. That is what we talk about with emotion regulation skills. So the whole game of dealing with crash outs, it's about learning what you do in that moment to catch yourself when you're in that vulnerable place. And then long term, it's about what you do to set yourself up for success long term. There was a comment a while ago about like, how do I bring my baseline down if the world is in such a crummy place? And this is how you do it. It's emotion regulation skills. Laffy Bun, I agree with you. It's not a Dr. Ali stream without Ryan, Lavender, and Meme Machine. Meme Machine. Why is it so much fun to say Meme Machine? I don't know. But it's so much fun. And Anna, you are welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm so happy that we're having this discussion. All right. So how do you actually do emotion regulation? How do you do that? How do you set yourself up for success in the future so that your emotions aren't going as high? The number one thing, folks, the number one thing. Any guesses what it is in the chat? Anyone know what the number one thing is to help you with emotion regulation across science, across, I don't know, across what else? Across science, and then clinical expertise and just all of this stuff. Also, I'm going to say age. I think a lot of people discover this with age, with enough time, that this is the number one thing to do to help them with emotion regulation. Anyone? Any takers? Laffy Bun, Dr. Ali, community lore is developing. We're doing it. We're making it. It's brewing. So the number one thing to help you with emotion regulation, Anna says breathe. Nope, it's not that. It's not that, but I'll give you a cool fun fact about that. Babies, you know that slow breathing I talked about before? Babies naturally do this type of breathing. They actually are much more likely to do deep diaphragmatic breathing. That is where you aren't doing the shallow breathing where you're breathing like that's shallow breathing. You're breathing from your chest. Deep diaphragmatic breathing actually looks like this. Let me show you. Let me see if I can get this in the shot. With diaphragmatic breathing, you're using that big giant muscle, your diaphragm, and it goes out on the inhale and then it falls on the inhale. Babies naturally do that. They're super good at doing that. Whoa, folks, I did this. I felt like I was Dr. K for a second from Healthy Gamer. You know, Dr. K will be like, it's just like that. Like, you do this. Like, what is this? Like, he loves this. Whenever I do this, I feel like that's a Dr. K maneuver. I'm going to call that the Dr. K maneuver from here on out. It might also be a little Daisy maneuver. We love kind of like, what? Like, what? We love the wrist action. What is it about Daisies? Why are we so good with the wrist action? You know, like, what? Anyways, Dr. K maneuver. Okay, what was I talking about? Oh, yes, breathing. Breathing is good, but no, that is not the number one thing. Flora says, I generally do breathing, journaling, Zumba, Pilates, coloring books, reading. All that stuff is great, but it's not the number one thing to do. Laffy Bun says, my experience is exercise for emotion regulation, but I have PTSD, so it's just hemispheric lateralization. Exercise is great. Exercise is like the best antidepressant, best anti-anxiety medicine out there. So that's great. And that goes along with the reset plan we talked about before. It's always good. Knife Shell says the Daisy flick is a real thing. And Chocolate Terry says, yeah, Dr. K from Healthy Gamer. Nothing but love for my buddy, Dr. K. No one has said it. Chat, come on, chat. The number one thing for emotion regulation to set you up for less crash outs the next day, the number one thing is getting good sleep. The number one thing. If there's only one thing you do to set you up for good emotion regulation the next day to reduce your chances of crashing out, it's to get some good sleep. The number two thing to remember, so two things to take away from this entire live stream, but this is all you do is you tune in for this 1 minute. Crashing out. If you want to avoid it, take opposite action as soon as you can. As soon as you identify you're at risk for crashing out, do the opposite thing of what you want to do. Get yourself out of that situation. Or if getting yourself out is going to be the crash out, then lean in, right? Find the opposite action. Do that. The number two thing to reduce your risk of doing that in the future, of crashing out in the future, is to get good sleep. To get good sleep. Laffy Bun says, I'm not a doctor, Doc. I'm not a doctor. I'm a doctor. Yes. It's okay. It's okay, folks. It's okay you didn't get sleep because we're going to talk about it right now. So everyone has slightly different needs of how much sleep they need to get. You know, for some of us, 6 hours. For some of us, 8 hours. It changes with age. Too much sleep is also a problem. Too little sleep is a problem. You want to get that sweet spot. What happens when you sleep is your brain is cleaning itself up. It is combining new memories with old memories. It's also you've got these, one of my favorite things. They're called glial cells, GLIA. Their job is to kind of clean up stuff that's going on in your body. Your brain does a ton of cleaning up when you get a good night of sleep, and it flushes all the plaque and all the crud that's been built up during the day. It flushes it out of your brain, just like a toilet is flushed after you use it. So think about when you're sacrificing sleep because you're watching too many Gary Vee videos and you're like, I need to hustle. And you're watching all this like hustle culture stuff, which is about like, stop enjoying your weekend, go do more work. Look at me, I have my big muscles and I'm super successful and I'm a millionaire, and I'm telling you, you need to just work harder. You're too lazy. You need to do all this sort of stuff, right? You're watching all that content. You're like, I'm just going to stay up later. Or maybe you're staying up later because you're not actually following their advice and they actually have some good advice, but you're just like watching their content and you're like, yeah, I'm going to hype myself up, and then you stay up too late. That is kind of like using the toilet during the day and never flushing it. And then the next day you're like, why does my house smell like crap? But you never flushed the toilet. If you're thinking, why do I feel like crap? And you never gave yourself the opportunity of getting enough sleep during the night, well, there's your answer right there. It's like you never flushed the toilet. So the best thing you can do to regulate your emotions, to reduce the chances of crash out, is to get some good sleep. You might have a hard time with sleep. Maybe you have a hard time falling asleep. Maybe you have a hard time staying asleep. Maybe you wake up or you hear so many distractions. No matter who you are, no matter what your sleep is like, it might be hard for you to get more sleep, but you can always improve the quality of your sleep. You can always improve your chill out routine in the hour before you fall asleep. Find better things that chill out your brain. You can always find good ways of sleep hygiene. So if you're stuck in bed, you're tossing and turning, it's been a long time, you haven't fallen asleep, get out, go do something boring, and then only go back to bed when you're feeling sleepy again. You can always improve your thermal regulation. If you're getting too hot, we actually need to cool down our bodies a bit to fall asleep and stay asleep. So maybe you can change the environment, get a fan, change your covers, all that sort of stuff. If the light is waking you up, get some blackout curtains. They're pretty cheap. Put them on the windows. Or get a sleep mask. That's even cheaper. Sound is waking you up, get some white noise going on in the room. There's so many things that you can do to improve the quality of your sleep. If you have a hard time waking up in the morning, drink a lot of water before you go to bed, and you're going to wake up because you're going to have to pee, and then that'll get you going. Your phone is keeping you up. Have your phone sleep very far away from where you sleep. There's so many things we can do to improve the quality of our sleep. So if you're serious about reducing these risks of crash outs in the future, bring your sleep into the equation and prioritize it, right? That is the number one thing you can do to improve your emotion regulation. There's so many other things you can do. Making sure you're hydrated, making sure you've had enough water, making sure you're having meals that make you feel nourished, getting some physical activity in the day, shutting off all the notifications to all the apps that don't need it, deleting the crud off your phone that isn't really adding to your quality of life. Trying to prioritize, if there's a person you care about in your life, prioritize real-time communication with them. Give them schedule a phone call, do some FaceTime, see them in person, as opposed to sending texts, sending DMs. All of those are actually they take away a lot more from you than they give back. But real synchronous at the same time, whether it's on the phone or in real life, those kind of experiences tend to build up more than they take away. So there's so many more things we can talk about with emotion regulation, but emotion regulation is critical, and the most critical part of it is going to be getting good sleep. Flora says, my husband likes to play video games. I feel so relaxed when he's playing that I always take a nap. I love it. It's my favorite time of the day. That is so sweet. That is so sweet that it kind of works out like that for both of you. Laffy Bun says, 6 hours of sleep for me is daily. I don't know if that's enough, but that's what I'm used to. If it's working for you and you feel rested and you can get going, that's great. That's ideal. The problem is if you're getting sleep and you're feeling pretty drained the next day. That could mean one of two things. One, you're not getting enough sleep for what you need. Your sleep is getting disrupted and interrupted. Or you might actually have sleep apnea. So my wife, I keep bringing her up in this live stream. I don't know why. Maybe because I love her. Maybe because our anniversary is coming up. Tomorrow is our wedding anniversary, actually. It's going to be 11 years. 11 years since we've been married. Wow. It's pretty cool. 11 years? 12 years? Wait, no. 11 years. Whew! I was really afraid that I got that wrong on camera live stream to everyone. But my wife would get 8-9 hours of sleep and still be tired the next day. And so I was like, sweetie, you need to get this checked out. Turned out she had sleep apnea where her breathing was interrupted. And so she kept waking up and wasn't getting the deep restorative sleep that you need. And now she has a CPAP machine and it's like night and day. She wakes up and is totally fine. Anna says, do you know from your experience of melatonin messes with mental health? It totally can. Melatonin is not something that's available over the counter in most countries. It is in the United States, so talk to your doctor about using melatonin. It's a great tool when it's used the right way. And I'm not a psychiatrist, so I don't talk about drugs and supplements and stuff like that, but talk to your doctor about it. Chocolatier says, I'm going to have to head out. I'll catch the rest of the post when it's later on as a video. Thanks for everything, Dr. Lee. Thank you for Chocolatier. Thank you for being here. Me Machine, there are not enough hours in the day for me to get the amount of sleep I want. I feel ya. How about the minimal amount that you need? And if you don't get that, take a nap. Try taking a nap. Get good at taking naps, and that can help too. Sleep is such a weird thing because it so changes with time and age and situation and where we are. And it's about just trying what works for you today in the time and space where you are right now. Laffy Bun says, who needs sleep when I can just go on my phone for emotional avoidance? Like some revenge nighttime procrastination. Totally. And Praveen says, I used to wake up at 6:30 and feel great. Now I struggle to wake up early. I've learned to let it go, and that makes me sleep better. You know, the ideal was the olden days when we didn't have lights or alarms or any of that sort of stuff. We woke up when we woke up, and we went to sleep when it was dark, and we got sleepy. That's the ideal for humanity, and we've kind of drifted far away from it. So as much as we can to get back to going to sleep when you're sleepy and waking up when you wake up. That's the ideal. It's a great goal. And thank you, Laffy Bun. Thank you for the anniversaries wishes right over there. So there's so many things here. And one thing I want to do is I want to talk about one crash out I had and break down what actually happened and give you all one more skill that you can use to help you when you might be crashing out. So a quick story over here. When I was in grad school, I had a roommate. I had many roommates. One of them was my best friend, who I'm actually going to see for lunch very soon. My roommates were all mostly pretty clean and good. I had one roommate, super social, super fun guy, super nice guy. Boy, was he a mess. Never put his dishes away, would grab things, leave them where they are, didn't really take out trash. I in retrospect, I know where it came from. I think he was an only child. He didn't really have to do a lot of these chore stuff. Like his family kind of did it for him. But boy, did it make him a bad roommate. And so we created this, like, everyone else knew it, And so we created this point system where if you don't do the chores that you're supposed to do, someone puts a point on this board. And if that point is co-signed and verified by someone else, then it counts as a point. And if you have that point, then you have to like pay, and you pay by the like having a higher share of the utilities. And we created this whole complicated system, which that was not my design. The other roommates were all economy majors. I wanted to have a design that was more about encouraging good behavior, which they vetoed. They laughed at and vetoed. They're like, PhD psychology student wants to encourage good behavior. No, we're going to implement costs. So that was their system. It didn't work. And we created this whole system to manage this roommate. And then one night, he didn't take out his trash. I put a point on the board, and he said, like, well, no one co-signed the point, so it doesn't count. And I lost it. I unleashed every single hurtful thing I could think about this guy. And he got so overwhelmed, and he's like, this is not good. This is not good. When I get angry, I want to break things. This is not good. And then he stormed off, and he locked himself into his room. And I was just furious and fuming. And my other roommates were like, what? Like I never showed any rage. And so they were so struck by this. So what the heck happened? So to kind of understand this, what you need is a chain analysis. This is a chain analysis right here. So this is the point where I yell at him. And what happened right before is he's saying that he didn't do it, right? And then what happened right after is he stormed off, so he goes to hide. And I'm just still mad. And I stay mad for like that whole night. And then I can't sleep at night. And then it's like super awkward, right? It's super awkward between us. So what we do with a chain analysis is we take that one moment of crash out and then we extend it in time. What happened before? What happened after? And your goal is to go way back to where you can find out where the seed of this idea started. Where did the seed of me yelling at him start? And it really started that day. I remember that day because it was a whole fight over him like not taking out the trash. And I think I had a very long day at school where I was overwhelmed, stressed, all this sort of stuff. And I really didn't want to do my chore, but I did my chore and he didn't do his. And when we ran into this fight, I couldn't control it anymore. I probably also didn't sleep well. I had terrible sleep all throughout grad school. And so to save time and space, because I don't have a lot of space here, sleep was an issue, right? Stress from school was an issue. The chores that I had to do and me being annoyed about the chores that I had to do, that was an issue. And I also think I was hungry. I think I didn't really have dinner. So the cool thing about a chain analysis and why we do this is everything before that moment of crashing out, everything before this part of the chain is one place where we can intervene. So the next time you're in this situation, maybe we work on sleep. Maybe we work to make sure I have food when I need it and I'm giving my body what it needs. Maybe I work on the stress and I just tell someone, man, I had a bad day today. I am really, really exhausted. Maybe if I did that, my other roommate would have been like, don't worry, man, I'll put your dishes away or I'll do this for you, right? Maybe I could have found a better way to communicate with him that it really upsets me when you don't do your chores. That was the thing. We made this whole point system. At no point did anyone ever like talk to him and say like, hey, basically, we want to help you with your chores. And we want to make sure you do your chores because it really hurts us when you don't do these things. We didn't really do that, right? So there's so many points to intervene before. And there's so many things that I could have done after too, because this crash out, he went to go hide. It was awkward. I couldn't sleep. There's so many things that I could have done to like help me with the after effects of crashing out too. And that's what this whole stuff is all about, chat. This is all about how can we handle the distress? What could we do to reduce the chances of crashing out? What can we do to help ourselves and be kind to ourselves after we have crashed out? And what can we do with emotion regulation to set us up for success in the future? That is how we deal with crashing out. And the thing here is it's about being kind to ourselves, and it's about understanding this happens. And for some of us, it happens much more than it does to others. If you're anyone who's neurodivergent, if you struggle with mental health, you're dealing with more crash outs, and you probably don't have as much permission or opportunity or privileges to crash out. You need to be more on top of this stuff. And for some of us, life is just very hard right now, and we're overwhelmed and undersupported. I think that is the core experience of being human in 2025. We're overwhelmed and undersupported. So be kind, move with grace, be kind to one another, just like you all are in these streams. I love seeing the kindness that flows in our chat. That's what the goal is here. Flora says, very interesting, the chain analysis. You can separate yourself from the emotions you're feeling. You're not really that. You're just lack of sleep, food, stress. Yes, 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 yes. This is just a thing that happens sometimes. Given the right sequence of events, of course, a crash out was totally inevitable. And once you see the sequence, these are all different places where you can try something different in the future. And just like we were talking about before in the chat, it's not about trying to do all of these things at once. Just find one place where you can try one thing differently next time. That's enough. That is enough. That is progress. That is movement. That is growth. That is learning. That's all I want us to do, folks, is to find a way to try a little bit of something differently in the future. And that's what I'm hoping we can do here, is just approach these things with a little bit more confidence and grace and kindness, you know? And so with that, folks, it is that time again. Oh no, my earphones, I just put them in because the cozy music is playing. The cozy music, oh man, that feels so good. I love Ryan's theme song. Here comes the part. Boop, boop, boop. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, boop. It's so chill. It just makes me want to like hang out and relax and talk about cool things with you all. Nashel, today's stream was very helpful personally. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm glad it helped out. I had a lot of fun doing this, and now I am wrapping up because I got to go see my best friends. We're meeting up for lunch. It's a little bit of self-care. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for bringing your kindness. Stay curious, stay awesome, stay kind, and just remember, it's just about doing that one thing. Try just one thing from today's stream, from today's video, and that is enough. I'll see you all in the next one.